contribution in protecting Indonesians abroad. Let's say hello to her right now. Good morning, Bami.
Good morning, Mami. Thank you for joining us.
Hi there.
Morning.
How are you?
I'm good. I hope you both of you is on the good condition too.
We're doing
Yes,
well.
we're
Rasa
over
and
here.
Paul, right?
Yes,
Yes.
Thank you for asking. So congratulations on the award, by the way, that you just received. So before we get into our conversation, tell us what this award means to you.
Oh, it's been a lot for me. It's not only for me, I think also for the Indonesian Consulate General in Sydney. The team is really awesome. But the message is not really that. The message is by having this award, it means the voices of the victim of domestic violence is heard. Yeah.
Yep.
And then we appreciate their courage, their courage of leaving toxic or life-threatening relationship. That's the important things. And then this is just the beginning for us. So
Wow.
Great.
I'm happy that this is given to us. This is for the victim of domestic violence.
Yeah, and we are happy for you and the Consulate General as well.
That's great to hear as well. Ami, would like to ask what prompted you to educate Indonesians in Brisbane and New South and Queensland to essentially about domestic violence?
All right, we first initiate about why we need to have this, because sometimes when people or when the women from all over the world, I'm maybe narrow down to Indonesian woman facing a domestic violence here in a foreign country, they don't know what to do. And you have to know that in the states of mind of having a crisis, they can't even think. They don't know what to do. They can't even think. And then sometimes they bring a lot of the children also together with them. And some women separated from the children. You know, those mental or state of mind is not healthy. They need help. And then by doing this with Beta Siaga program, with the Consulate General of Indonesia in Sydney, we have a lot of programs. Like, for instance, like we educate them. We give them a proper information about what kind of type of domestic violence, and then how separated with the a problem of domestic violence or problem with the relationship, and then how to get help. Because knowing that even though Australia is like one of the superpower country, but they're still facing a domestic violence too. One every week woman has killed because of domestic violence.
Wow.
That's the concern.
That is such an alarming number, and apparently these cases are appearing more and more since the pandemic. How is this happening, Mbami? Like, what is it that is causing this to happen more, that now that we're in a pandemic? Are we just getting sick of each other, some of us being in a home, locked up with the same people all the time? What are the main factors?
All right, when we're talking about domestic violence itself, it's planned from many sources of causes. But when we are talking about during the COVID, that's adding more causes. And then it's, for me, it's from more to a mental health, how all of us cope with this situation and the condition. Yes. And then you can imagine they lost a job, and then they have to stay all together in the same house 24 hours 7, and then all the children not going to the school, and then they have to pay the bills, and then they're worried about everything. They're not allowed to go out. Even searching help is not easy at that time, especially during the first round of the COVID-19. That's really, really chaotic, and we cannot find even a tissue because some people like excessively. So those conditions is more to a mental health, how they cope with the condition.
Yeah, I think it's mostly, I think it has a lot to do with financial pressure, if anything, because, let's take finance out of it and not having the pressures of having to put food on the table. I would assume being locked up with your loved ones. I mean, in the beginning, I loved hanging out with extra time with the kids and the family. And then that pressure slowly came because we weren't working. And that's, I think, where it starts to sprout from. And then all these other problems will start, underlying problems.
You're only allowed to go out to buy essential things for continue your life. So you can imagine that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
There's actually what I read is a increased rate of divorce even like in China, because they were not used to have to face their spouse at
Significant
home,
other,
but
yeah.
now that they are in lockdown, they are forced to actually force all the problems.
Yeah, you start
so
to
I
see
think
all
it's
the warts in
compounding.
your relationship.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Here.
So, Ami, what kind of services do you offer to these victims? Does it include as well legal assistance for the domestic violence victims?
Yeah, the services at the first is the priority now is more like a education, like give the right information. And then second, of course, because I open my phone 24 hours for who search about even start wanting to know what is the domestic violence, and open for all the victims. So my service is like giving a guide how to handle their problem, and then as a hub to give them referral to get the proper services of domestic violence here in Australia, to get more professional. I'm not saying that I'm not professional, but I mean more professional handling, because the domestic violence system here is working really, really well. So I encourage them to do what they have to, they're supposed to do for themselves. So because here, no one will guide you one by one and then lead you, go to the court and go to the police, and then you have to fill out this and fill out that. No, it's very, very, very takes your self-confidence to do that. So my job or our service is giving provide correct information and then guide them step by step, and then so they're able to do and solve their problem by themselves while we are working together with them, working side by side.
Right.
So you know what I mean?
I'm sure a lot of these victims, much appreciate, and because they all need your help. But do you think there's a difference in how perhaps permanent residents or migrant workers over there are treated when it comes to their case? The status matters when you're dealing with this sort of cases when it comes to the Australian government.
No. The service is all same for everybody here, even though you are just a tourist.
Okay.
But the services has a different when it's come to financial. When you have to support yourself, if you are a tourist visa, it's not easy to get help financially with to the government. I mean Australian government.
Right.
But there's another help that is provided for those kind of things. So it's really depend on what kind of visa that you entering Australia. But I may say all is same, whether you are a permanent resident or you are just a worker or you are students, you are treated all the same.
That's good to know.
Right. You mentioned earlier that you also help to connect these victims to financier, and we're pretty sure that there's a lot of cost involved when it comes to hiring a lawyer. What would usually be the range of hiring a lawyer to solve all your problems, and how can the government help or we help to support the victims in Australia?
All right. I cannot mention because of the lawyer here is very. But I can ensure that if you don't have enough financial, and then if you let's say under 5 years living in Australia, you're entitled to get pro bono lawyer.
Okay.
That you don't need to. So which is the good news. And then that's the thing that I can. But even though you live longer, more than 5 years, as long as you can prove that you don't have a proper income that able to support you to pay, there's also a pro bono lawyer here available for you.
Right.
So
so we've talked a lot about how to deal with victims or survivors of domestic violence, but I guess the best thing would be if this never happened to begin with. So we talk a lot about prevention of these things happening. You mentioned education as a big part of it, but what other things can be done and have you been doing to provide victims with services to perhaps prevent domestic violence?
Yes, I've done a lot. We've done a lot. Me and Consulate General in Sydney provide so many things, including like essential things. And besides the education, we also provide a certification on human rights. So as the to the community of Indonesian as a leader of those community, because we have a lot of organization here run by Indonesian. We give them a certification that they allow to help domestic violence victim, because the scope area of working territory of Consulate General in Sydney is very huge, like including 3 states, which is Queensland itself is 5 times of the Java Island, so you can imagine.
Yeah.
So by doing so, and by rely on the technology, they can access through the website or through the following us from the online daring, like a Zoom like this. So it's nothing to, as long as you have a will, and then we can provide everything. And then it's just, as far as the calling me through the phone, I can also provide a counseling for domestic violence victim, for past, present, and the future, even for someone who we call it survival.
Yeah.
Sometimes they still deal with mental health.
How about Bersama Kita Saling Jaga? That sounds like a program that is more of, I guess, a defensive program to prevent these things from happening. Can you tell us a little bit more about Beta Siaga?
Yeah, Beta Siaga is a program initiated by Consulate General of Sydney. I thank God for doing this together with them, and thankful for the great team. This program is more to prevent. Yes, it's creating a point of help for everybody. I mean, Indonesian citizen who lives in Australia, especially to the 3 states that I have just mentioned. That's more to educate, and then that's more to understand about what to do, because if you try to help, but if you wrong give a direction, in Australia there is also, it's not a punishment, there is also a consequences. So when you help someone with the domestic violence problem, and then don't try to solve yourself, but you have to know how to proper help, how to get the proper, how to you initiate or refer to the proper services. Right. That's what we are trying to give them.
Correct.
But it's not only prevention, but also we also hand in hand with the victim. If we face a victim of domestic violence, try to reach us.
Cool. Wow, that is, you're clearly doing great work here. Important work. Now, I understand that the program must run periodically as well as continuously, and you cover actually a lot of areas in Australia, including New South Wales, Queensland, and South Australia. How are you currently managing it, or plan to manage it in the future?
Yeah, we really rely on, during this pandemic, we rely on the system. I mean the online things. When our border is open, and then we just hurry up to, let's say, I flew to Sydney to deliver face-to-face training and then give the certification. But if the pandemic lockdown happen again, because we are on and off, open and close, is depend on how busy and how urgent it is. So we will provide through this like this. It's just online. And then the important things, that's why I always open, and also Consulate General Sydney is always open their phone for 24 hours so they can reach. So that's, I think, that I can explain right now. But a lot of the program, we always we will do the refreshment program, and then we will try to reach out of area, out of big city places, in order to deliver more about the education and information education, or even the certification. But we align with the government. If they open the border, and we hurry to implement it. But if not, then we think about, we have to improvise how to do.
One last thing from me. Obviously, all these services are great, these programs, these initiatives to help. But I think the most difficult step is the very first one for a victim of domestic abuse. Taking that first step in order to get help is something that is not comes naturally to most people. So perhaps maybe some advice or words from you for those that are currently in need of help but don't know how to go around doing it.
All right, first of all, you have to understand this is a life threaten of yourself and your could be your children. So please bear in your mind, speak out, speak out, because if you don't speak, no one heard. So speak out, have a courage and brave to speak about. You have a right. You have an entitled to have a right to live properly with your dignity, freedom, and then respect. So if you don't speak out, then no one here. So you have to speak out. And then there is another innovation from me. I'm the one who write everything. And then Consulate General of Sydney, who's provide the innovation, they have in their website a panic button. So from all over part of even Australia, if you want to try to reach, just open the website and click the panic button. And then I'm the one, me myself, who write all the guidance what to do. And then if you face this, what to do. So, and even also provide some phone to help. I put, and we together put a list of the phone regarding where you reside. Let's say from people from Queensland can reach this phone, from New South Wales this phone. I mean, a phone about the services who provide this for domestic violence, and then a national phone also if they're really in the other remote area. So that's the last innovation that we can. But in the future, we will also work with the some LSM, perhaps in Indonesia, and then also the mixed marriage organization. We will again give the education or educative information so they can learn before they step in or they are going abroad to another foreign country. Better read the tips about it, so it might be useful.
Yeah, I never thought about it from that angle, but for mixed marriages, let's say you're moving to a foreign country, you're not familiar with the laws, you're not familiar with the culture, so this is such a good thing you're doing. But I mean, thank you so much for your time. Congratulations once again on the award. You and the Consulate General both obviously very much deserve it, and we hope you continue to do good things in the upcoming year. Just stay healthy.
Thank you so much, Rami. A pleasure to have you here.
Yeah, have a good day and
You
stay
too.
healthy for both of you.
Thank you. Happy
Thank
New
you.
Year.
Bye.
There you go.
Wow.
You never think about how it feels. We live here, and some of us are actually married here. We don't know what it's like to actually be in a foreign country, be in a foreign situation.